Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is George Plosker. I'm a Client Services Manager for the IEEE Xplore Digital Library. And I am really considered a subject matter expert in the digital library. Most of my job, I work with academic, corporate, and government clients who are using the digital library. We answer questions, we do training, we work with product development. So we have a pretty interesting role. About 5% of the time, I get to work with IEEE student branches. So last week, for example, I was at USC and UCLA, and we bought pizza for the student branch, and we gave them all IEEE t-shirts, which they love. So that's kind of a fun part of my job, a little bit of inspiration for the generation coming up as to how the IEEE can be an asset for them in their careers, their job hunts, staying current, and so on. I want to thank the people from the IEEE Solid State Circuit Society, Mike Kelly and Mike Markowitz. They've given us just a tremendous amount of help organizing this event today, and really thank all of you. I know that it's an incredibly busy conference, and it's really terrific. It's an honor that you would take an hour to spend with us to learn more about the digital library. Now, the format for this today, we're going to talk a little bit about content. We're going to talk about the latest changes to the platform, and if time allows and questions demanded, we are ready to go online and answer any questions through live demonstration if that would be necessary. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard of Thomson Scientific, really Thomson Reuters these days. Their Institute for Scientific Information. They track all the technical literature on what's called the citation analysis level, and that's to the individual article. So their tool, called the Web of Science, can track how often any particular article has been cited. And I'm sure all of you are aware of impact factors and things like that. Now, we always look at the annual aggregation of that content, which is called the Journal Citation Report. The Journal Citation Report is pulling this together more on the journal level, and it will show you which journals are being cited most frequently. And of course, we're very proud that in these subject areas that the IEEE operates in, we are simply the most frequently published frequently cited technical publisher. And here you can see some of the subject areas where we have a dominant position. And to demonstrate just breadth of content as well, here are areas where we're number 1 or number 2. So as you can see, the subject matter is highly regarded, most frequently cited content. Let me just get a show of hands. Do we have any IEEE authors here in the room? Oh, quite a few. Well, thanks to all of you for your contribution. When I talk to groups, including the student groups, I basically say that IEEE Xplore is a reflection of the expertise, the experience of the membership who contributes to the content. So we know you all do that in your own way, but we certainly want to appreciate the authors and the work they do for us. Now, the IEEE has been looking at through some internal statistical tools that we have, and these are the top search terms for 2014. And I think all of you certainly living it every day know that things are moving along just dramatically. Things are so quick that you really need tools that help you stay current. And here's some of the newer topics that have been showing up as very frequently searched in IEEE Xplore. Now, one of the things that we often try to communicate is that the IEEE, a lot of people look at that acronym and they only see 2 letters, EE. So we're always trying to dispel the notion. Now, sure, that's our foundation, but things that have been built upon that foundation are extending to many much broader areas, interdisciplinary areas. And you can see some of the search terms today. The subject matter continues to expand. And of course, we're always trying to pay attention to the marketplace dynamic, to technical development, to stay current with all of this. Now, how do we increase the coverage of IEEE Xplore? Well, each year we introduce new conference titles, we introduce new journal titles. So this is in response to this change that we see taking place. Now sure, we could put the content into existing journals or make it part of an existing conference, but when people get passionate about a new subject area, they want their own arena, and of course at IEEE, by creating new journals, we're able to have an editorial center of excellence. So here's some of the news for this year, and you can see the titles that are coming up. Now for those of you who do have access, and I would assume it's virtually all of you, to IEEE Xplore, all this new content comes into Xplore as soon as it's ready. In other words, we don't contact you and try and do some upsell based upon new content. It's in there as soon as it's ready. And here you can see the titles that are going to be added this year. Now this is just really the tip of the iceberg. Down at the bottom of this graphic, you can see that from 2013 through 2013, we added more than 50 new journals. And that's out of a total of about 175. So the number of journals has increased dramatically to reflect all of the changes in the technical marketplace. And here you see the titles that were added in 2014. Now, because we've been hearing quite a bit from authors who wanted open access options, we have also moved into open access. And we have 3 different ways of doing this. In other words, it's a very flexible approach. And this is down at the bottom of the screen. And you can see we have fully open access topical journals. And these include topics like photonics, computing, translational engineering, electron devices, and so on. So they're fully OA. The hybrid journals allow the author to elect the option. They can go the standard route or they can go the OA route. And then that individual article will be appropriately tagged within Xplore for open access. And then most recently, we added this mega journal, and this is worthy of a couple of minutes. The rapid decision means that while it is going through a thorough peer review, you can expect that the decision will be made much more quickly than the more traditional print journals that are perhaps a little bit older in their history. One of the things that we wanted to do with that content was make it interdisciplinary, because all of the journals historically have been pegged to the society that essentially sponsors that journal. They have what librarians like to call selection criteria by subject. In other words, you have to be within the boundaries of the definition of that vertical society, the coverage of that journal. Recognizing that more and more important solutions are coming from interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary areas, we wanted something that would not have that subject-based criteria, and hence the mega journal. It is interdisciplinary, no selection criteria based upon subject. Of course, quality criteria, yes. IEEE quality always important to us. And at the present time, this is an online-only journal. And of course, any of you who have access to Xplore have access to all of the OA content, as you would expect. Now, the conference content, this has really been an amazing growth story. In the year 2000, there was just under 400 IEEE conferences worldwide. Still an impressive number. But this year, we are expecting that it will go over 1,400. The past 2 years, 2013 and 2014, it exceeded 1,300. So a lot of times when people will say to me, boy, you work with engineers, they have no passion. I go, wait. When an engineer gets excited about their subject area, they want to be with people who share that excitement, who see the potential of that technology. And I give you this, including this conference. So of course, this is really one of the most important conferences we do, been around a long time, but still one that has the strongest reaction. My colleagues and I were talking about this. As soon as this conference ends, I'm going to get phone calls from clients and say, when am I going to get the proceedings? Well, needless to say, it takes a little bit of time to get that stuff online. A couple of years ago, I had a woman who was a very senior information scientist at Qualcomm. She called me up here and she said, there was a paper given yesterday. Can you get me that paper today? So I would say to her, next year you come to the conference. And here's some of the new titles. And you can see things like very contemporary topics. The Internet of Things, humanitarian technology is becoming a big subject for us, intelligent energy, a lot of activity around smart grid and so on. So a lot of this, I think, looking at a foundation area like integrated circuits, you're looking at areas of application, of conceivable market application that could result from the corporate sector in new revenues, and in the academic sector, new areas of study, new application areas. And just for as long as we're looking at new content, usually the standards, people think of them as such a foundation, such a rock, but they change too. And here you can see that you are indeed seeing new standards in 2014. And I do like to mention that when you, and we'll show this in more detail, look into personalization in IEEE Xplore, you will be able to set up alerts. In other words, if you want to track whenever a particular standard is being updated, you can actually set that up, and we'll push out an email to you when that standard gets changed. Same thing is true for conference content, and even more detailed views, table of contents views of the journals. Now, this is a very new area, and even though it was created by the standards group, it's really a different kind of venture. It's not a standard. We're calling it internally the vision documents. So if you think of companies like Gartner and IDC who forecast IT trends and so on, this is our attempt to move into more of a market perspective on what will be happening with smart grid through the next 15, 20, even 30 years. So this is a really different kind of thing. Still written by IEEE experts, similar to yourselves, but taking it as detailed, longer-term vision approach. And we may see this in new areas. And you can see the different technology sectors that we're focusing on: power, computing, communications, control systems, and vehicle technology. And each bundle would include the vision document, the reference model, and the roadmap. So this is something that's kind of new. We're starting to see places like Stanford pick it up, like Qualcomm pick it up, and take a look at how they can integrate sort of a more technical, more intelligent vision of the market future into their own work. Now the IEEE, we have really depended upon partners more and more in recent years. I think all of you know the old IEEE, which changed its name a few years ago to the IET. And that, of course, was designed to communicate this idea more than electrical engineering. And we've been partners with them since 1988. So all the important content in terms of the peer-reviewed journals, conference papers from the IET come into IEEE Xplore and are fully searchable as part of the aggregation. More recently, we have begun to work with organizations like IBM. We've started to work with a Chinese technical publisher, the Tsinghua Science and Technology Journal, the Journal of Systems Engineering from the Beijing Institute of Aerospace, a German technology publisher, VDE, MIT Press, and Morgan & Claypool. Now, some of this is in the area of ebooks, but much of it is in the area of conference and journal literature. I'm going to take a look at one of our newest offerings, and I think many of you will appreciate the history in these slides. We are now the sole provider of the Bell Labs Technical Journal. Very similar to the IBM content, the organization is happy to create the content, but they didn't want to go through the mechanics of all the bringing it to the public, whether it be the online method, the print tool, whatever. So we now have this fully online in Xplore. It's 92 years worth of content, 26 new articles a year. The back file goes to 1922. Key research, and all of you are well aware of the market leadership position that Bell Labs has occupied for many, many decades. Peer-reviewed literature, and a selected list of 40 super important titles are now available for free. So let's take a little bit of a look backwards. We have from volume 28, 1949, the articles that describe the research of Shockley, Bardeen, and Breton about the invention of the first transistor. Now, admittedly, this might be more for a history student than for each of you, but it is online at the present time. And I love when the History Center comes up with these photos. It's always really cool to look at what they were doing. We have from 1963 the first descriptions of the Telstar satellite, which of course created a complete revolution in communications satellites. All of us with GPS today and with communications being what they are, none of this would have happened without this beginning work. It had to start somewhere, and Bell Labs was the place. And here are other seminal papers from Bell Labs. So this is really, it's always fun to kind of take a look backward and see all of the reaction to things like Sputnik and so on. And here you can see some of these key papers. Now, MIT Press, we're not getting their complete collection. Instead, we selected 8 titles that really have the highest correlation to the IEEE Xplore content. So artificial intelligence, evolutionary computation, cognitive neuroscience, neural computation, linguistics, teleoperators, and virtual environments. And this is full text access going back to 1989. We think that when organizations like IBM and Bell Labs and MIT, they want to come to IEEE Xplore as their distribution mechanism, it's a compliment to all of you, and it's a compliment to the team that brings this aggregation to you. It adds to the ability of this tool to provide answers through aggregated content that can be relevant to your problem, to your project. Now, the ebooks thing, this has been an interesting area, and before I talk about the specific partners, I just want to talk about when we speak with young people today. They are telling us that there is an enormous gap, which I'm sure all of you will understand readily. Here's like Wikipedia and the open web, and here's peer-reviewed science. So what kind of content can bridge that gap? Now, some of the better Wikipedia entries do have pretty good bibliographies that you can expand upon. But when we talk to people, and I think of them as somewhat enlightened in both academic and corporate settings, they're telling us that they are providing, and we do this to the chapter level. So targeted readings of individual chapters from monographs that lead into the peer-reviewed knowledge. Now, because a monograph is much more soup to nuts than a peer-reviewed article, it's a terrific place to bridge that gap that exists today, from Wikipedia on into the stuff that you're all working on. So who are the partners? We're working with Wiley, we're working with MIT Press, and we're working with Morgan and Claypool. One of the things that I'm really happy to talk about with this, unlike certain ebook, let's call it technical models, our configuration has no digital rights management, 0. So if you or one of your students or one of your colleagues wants to download a bunch of chapters, they want to compile the whole book, we don't have a one-button download yet, but we are looking at that, they can move it to an e-reader of choice. They have complete control over that book in terms of any mechanism that they want to use to read it. And no one's going to come and take the content away or do anything like that. So in other words, no digital rights management, and we think this is very, very important today. All right, we've taken a look at the content developments. Now I want to get into a little bit of the platform. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. We have a little bit of a history here. How many of you remember this screen? Couple, okay. Even before this, by the way, there was a CD-ROM of the Xplore Digital Library. And then, of course, this screen, fairly current. And kind of interesting to note, by the way, this screen doesn't show the number of records, but this one does, and it was 1.7 million records. And then fairly recently, we had this where we were up to 3.2 million records. And for those who have been online lately, we have this new look. And what we're doing at the bottom of the screen, we're providing a lot more sort of trends. We know that people in various organizations, they don't really look at IEEE Xplore as a news site, but we do like to highlight certain things that are taking place in the world of technology. This is a recent cover of Spectrum magazine. You get the idea. So now, we're at 3.6 million full-text documents, and that's in PDF. We have also started to add, and we're up to almost 2 million records in an interactive HTML format. So while PDF is definitely the preferred offline format, reading on screen, you may want to see what this HTML format looks like, and we will show it. We are moving into different types of authentication. Single sign-on. We're also going to be talking about what we're calling mobile pairing, where if you bring in a mobile device to a place of work and authenticate, it will drop a little cookie on the machine and it will allow you to use your subscription anywhere. We're talking Starbucks, talking home, without the VPN, anywhere. So looking at authentication and the way that people are working today, we're trying to keep up with that, and that's pretty challenging. This authentication stuff has become one of its own areas. Internally, we sometimes say we need a CAO, a Chief Authentication Officer, because all the environments are different and it's become very challenging to keep up with that. But we are making progress. New mobile-friendly design. So let's get into some detail. Now the HTML articles, this is what we've done so far. It's all journals, magazines, and conferences from 2001 to date, standards coming later. And what can you do with it? Well, the on-screen display lets you scan, interpret, and view the article using quick preview. You can instantly navigate around portions of the article. You can explore text, figures, equations, and so on more completely. Each graphic, and that includes mathematical images, have become its own information object, which gives us much more ability to work with that content. And we expect to see a lot more work in the world of images shortly. Quick view, copying mathematical equations, and seeing recommended articles. So let's do a little close-up here. Now the jump menu. You'll notice that you can actually jump from the introduction directly to the conclusion. And what we've heard from a lot of people in your fields is that that's exactly how they read. They read the introduction, they read the conclusion, and then they decide if they're going to read the middle. So you can now just jump instantly to that area of the article. Now down here at the bottom, you can view the graphics. And by right-clicking, and I think this is really difficult to see, you can even open it in a high-resolution image and right-click that image and save it. So if you wanted to insert the graphic into PowerPoint or insert the graphic into a Word document, no problem to do that. The navigation, this will float with the movement. So in other words, as you move through the article, you still hold the navigation in the right rail. And then once you see a mathematical equation that has a text source equivalent, you can open up and copy the text source, paste it into a formatting tool, and it will then format appropriately in the final result. So you can see a lot more dynamic than PDF. But fear not, we are not getting rid of the PDF. We would have a real problem on our hands if we tried to do that. So the PDF is staying, but explore this new format and see if it works for you. Now, I don't know how many of you have taken advantage of the personalization features, but we always feel it's worth talking about. Since you are an IEEE member, you can use your IEEE web account for a personalized login. It's in the top right corner of the screen. And it's going to give you saved search alerts. So if you are working on a problem, and here you can see one down here, you can save the search, name it, save it, and once a week we will deliver only new records to you. So in other words, this should be a search on the core concept of the project or the problem, and no longer do you have to worry, oh, do I need to go back into Xplore and see if there's anything new? We'll push it right out to you. So we like that in and of itself. Table of content alerts for journals, and you can get standards by version or a general alert on conferences. You can set personal preferences. So for example, if you like to download citations to a specific type of citation manager, we can hold that formatting preference for you, and when you download, it will land on its feet in your bibliographic software. Now, search history is a very interesting feature. It will save the last 50 statements that you did. So you have a record of everything you searched. In addition, you can combine the statements using Boolean connectors. That gives you even more advanced capability and control over the search result. The content alerts. When you do a content alert now, the old appearance through email didn't really give much information on the content of the article, but we have changed the display to give you a more complete bibliographic reference and much more of a hint as to what that article is about. And all of these would include the link to the full text. So as soon as you see the article, you can click on that link. Assuming authentication, the full text will open. Now, many of you have heard about responsive design, and the IEEE Xplore product team a couple of years ago looked at apps and they looked at responsive design, and we decided to go mostly with responsive design. We've got a couple of apps. We have an image app available, but we are now implementing responsive design where it will sense the size of your screen. So it could be the phone, it could be the tablet, and it will format properly. So this is something that is, we're not totally finished with this, but a lot of the pages have been completed, and you can see, for example, on the home page how much better it looks. Down at the bottom, things like news, just published, most popular, and so on. Now we've started to include in Xplore, this was based upon requests from customers, tools that highlight patent citations. So you can see the impact of an article using the Cited By tab in the abstract. And it will show you how many article citations there are, how many from IEEE, how many from other publishers, and the final grouping will be cited in patents. And when you click on that, it will bring you to a display of the patents that cited that article, and you can open the full text, which is public domain, so we were able to provide it for free. But you don't have to go to a separate patent site. The full text opens a new window and opens right out of the Xplore session. Now you can also sort the results to be most cited. In other words, there's a sort menu, and we hope you're all familiar with that. And I do have a little reminder coming up. Sort by most recent, sort by most cited by journals, sort by most cited by patents. So you have control over that display. And this is what the patent page would look like. You can see View at Patent Office or View Full Text PDF. And here's what the drop-down menu would look like. You can sort newest first, which is often recommended for a result set. But if you're going after the citation analysis, here are the two most cited options. We think the sort menu is a little hidden gem in the search interface. A lot of people will say to me, well, can I use Google for all of this? Well, you'll find a couple of articles. Google crawls our stuff. But if you're trying to actually do technical research, you need a research tool, not a search tool. I mean, looking for best pizza near the Civic Center, that's doable in search. Research is the work that you all do. And we think that this interface is keeping up with what you need to be doing. Of course, if you ever have ideas, we want to hear them. And in the display, you can see here that this particular one has been cited by 14 papers and 533 patents. So in some way, that article is driving product development or something along those lines. Usually, you don't see such an imbalance here, only 14 papers and such a large number of patents. All right, so getting back to you and your environments. Now, who's using Xplore today? Well, we started to see that it's being used in broader application areas. R&D, technological precedent, forecasting, competitive and market intelligence, product information, current awareness, patent-related searching. Now, there are workflow considerations today, and while this is especially true in the corporate environment, it's true in all of our environments. So when in the project cycle or when in the problem solving do you do IEEE Xplore research? Now, we very often hear from people, you know, I don't have time for this. I know I should be working through a group of articles in Xplore and pulling out the little kernels, the little gems, and applying it to my project or problem. But we really think, and we get to see a lot of different environments, that this, while it takes time at the appropriate moment in the cycle, it ultimately will save time. All of us know that doing a little bit of homework in front of a problem is much better than learning the lesson through the school of hard knocks. So, all right, let's assume you're convinced you need to do it. So who does it? Is it designated staff? I mean, some of you may even have access to a librarian, but they do not, and this is the key point here, they don't have the subject knowledge that you have. So the person with the detailed subject knowledge, interacting with the content to see the stuff that's right on point to their need, that we think is optimal. So while you can give this off to someone else to do, your detailed subject knowledge and ability to figure out what's really relevant to your problem, that's something that you cannot replace. And we'd like to think that we have the interactive tools that let you go back and forth with the content. It's one of the major advantages of online search. Print, different story, but online, not quite there. How do I modify the search strategy to get me what I need? And by the way, if any of you, and I'll have contact information up at the end, want to hear more about how client services approaches this, we have a worldwide team. We have a lot of expertise in developing search strategies, and we're talking sophisticated stuff here. We're not talking about the best pizza search. And sharing content with team members. What we've heard is that a problem-solving team will meet and they'll whiteboard the problems. Then they'll take the individual whiteboard items and they'll assign it to members of the team. They'll go out and do the homework and they'll come back to the team with just the kernels. They'll have digested the content. Now, it's nice to give them the assignment in an area they like and that they're good in, but this is the way that we're hearing, particularly corporate product people, solving problems using this content. We do not think of it as just this intellectual exercise. This is directly related to projects and problems. Now, when you start thinking about search strategies, and this often throws people a little bit, this is like when you were still in school and you were like, what is this term paper going to be about? And figuring out the topic. And so what you really have to think through is, what is the nature of the project or problem? What are the major concepts? And those might be the ones where you set up the alert. And then what is the refining terminology? that brings it down to that point, and we call that drilling down. We have mechanisms in the Xplore interface to search within the results. So you drill down, drill down, drill down until it's dead on to what you are looking for. And then once you're there, what are the results suggesting? Is there a new avenue, a new idea, some added perspective? Look at the abstract, look at the keywords, and then maybe use those keywords to modify the strategy. So here's a little example. We did a search, and I just want to show you how easy it is to share records with your colleagues. We got back 39 results. And you can see here that the results per page is 25. The default sort is relevance. And notice that every record has a little checkbox. And these checkboxes are kind of the key to sharing the records. All right, so there's that view. And just quick side note, PDF, HTML. So most of the records, we now have about 2 million HTML articles, will give you that option. All right, so now I work this. I change the sort to newest first, because I'm going to go for this result set in an offline format. I bumped up the results per page to 50 to accommodate the 39 records. I then say select all. So all 39 records are selected, and at that point, all of these buttons will light up. So you can download the citations with or without the abstract. That could go in a report. You can copy the result to Word. It might go in an RFP. It's a good way to grab the search result, and each record will include a persistent URL. So it'll take you right back to the full text. So you're effectively sharing that with your colleagues. Now, some of you may have heard of a new thing the IEEE is working on called Collaboratech. It's going to be a collaboration tool designed for people like you. So it's going to bump out the Save to Project with a much more complete application, and we will be hearing more about that in the coming months. You can simply email the record links to your colleagues with a note. Read this by next week, or read some of them at least. And you can also export the results to a spreadsheet, all the metadata. So if you want to know what affiliations are working with this, what companies, what schools, what authors are working on this, and maybe correlate those authors, you can download the spreadsheet and get a quick view. We mentioned the author affiliation field in the promotion, and this is really kind of a hidden gem. If you go into advanced search and you use the drop-down menu, there's a field called author affiliations. And it's very simply, where does the author work? So in the corporate space, they might use this to track the competition and see what the engineers are writing about. I like to show it to students when they're going to interview with someone, that they can do the search for the company that they're going to interview with, sort the records by date, read through the abstracts, walk into the interview with a list of all the key subject areas that the engineers are working on. And then say something like, I understand your company is working on, and the students especially like it because they don't have to read the full text. They just cruise through the abstracts and the keywords. So imagine how that looks, pretty impressive. But of course, a lot of these young people today are impressive. So if any of you ever need to track by institution, company name, organization name, university name, you can easily do that with the author affiliation field. All right, you would think that's enough, but we keep on going, and that's why it's very important to sort of stay in to Xplore, to see all the change. We're going to have multi-PDF downloading full journal issues, standards content in HTML format, enhanced searching by standards number. We're going to have an API pilot program. So if you or your teams are looking to get a different level of access to the content, Perhaps for data mining applications, we're going to have ways to support that. Altmetrics integration. You know, I personally couldn't care less how often Facebook cites my article, but maybe some people do. Image search, including image-related metadata. Improvements to author data. Now that one sounds particularly unglamorous and boring, but when you're looking for a particular author with a common name, the ability to precisely differentiate the author names, maybe by where they went to school, what they work on, actually a big project and very important. The roaming mobile authentication access, and we are working on the e-learning library. There's going to be some good changes coming to that too. So the roaming mobile access, this is where you basically bring in your device to where you work, you authenticate, it drops the cookie on the device, and then you can use that device anywhere for 90 days without having to worry about the authentication. As you can imagine, we've seen way more traffic coming from tablets, coming from phones, so we are going with this and going to enable the access. And again, if you need more information about this, you'll be able to contact your client services manager and we can help. And this is again the responsive design where the screens will fit regardless of device. And we are keeping the help materials up to date. So if you just click on help, you're going to see this over here and be able to look at the help in much more of a conventional format. In other words, open up kind of a table of contents to the help or search the help. And then notice this right here. We are working on way more online tools and support for IEEE authors. This is a very important area. We started to focus on more authorship support last year, and we did some presentations on it. We got a lot of feedback, and this is something where we want to do more for the IEEE authors. Right, this is my contact information, and I want to go through this quickly. You see the alias, the client services email alias? This goes to all of us on the team, and we have a total of 7 now, about to go to 9 throughout the world. We know each other's schedule. It's not like a miracle. We just publish it weekly in the weekly report. So we know, they know exactly where I am right now. So they will back me up. In other words, if a client contacts like a West Coast person, I'm based in Silicon Valley, and copies the training alias, my colleague in Texas will pick it up. She'll know to respond to that. And we try and respond to questions to that training line within 24 hours, and we try to guarantee 48 hours, and sometimes a lot quicker. So it could be a problem, it could be an access issue, it could be search strategy, whatever the case might be. We know that when you need it now, and we're trying to provide that strong support. We have a website with various tutorials and things like that. And then the more technical support or billing support is at online support at IEEE.org. So the client services team, by the way, we're free. We're part of IEEE Xplore. There's never any fees for training, fees for promotional activity, fees to answer questions, none of that. So we have a lot of expertise in knowledge management, in the database, and our job is to really help each of you. All right, I'm going to open up for questions, and I am prepared to go online if anyone wants to see anything in a little bit more detail. And also, if any of you would like a copy of this PowerPoint, we're happy to provide that. I just would need your email address. You could either email me, or feel free to come up and we can trade business cards or scraps of paper or whatever works. So recognizing you're all busy, I want to thank you once again for your time and attention today. Terrific group. We may do more of these in the future, working with the society. But let me break it open to questions now and open up the browser and see if we